The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Let me just say, after video distorting the belt, they're proclaiming the real world champion. I'm going to tell you all, with a tear in my eye, this is the greatest moment in my life. When you walk around this world and you tell everybody you're number one, the only way you get to stay number one is to be number one.
Happy Wildcard Week, Divisional Playoff Round Week, whatever you want to call it. Welcome to another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza. We are live here on the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube, as well as the Belly Up channel on YouTube. Yours truly, Captain Lou, with you in the chair. Going to give you a warning up front. The voice, not really what it's cracked up to be, a combination of a cold and screaming my lungs out on Sunday night in downtown Detroit at Ford Field with that huge historical win for the Detroit Lions, 24-23 over the Los Angeles Rams. So sit back and enjoy. Welcome to our show here tonight. We're going to have a great show planned for you tonight. We're going to talk, for the majority of the night, professional football. The NFL Wildcard Weekend is in the books as the Lions won. The Packers humiliated the Cowboys right before that Lions game. Then on Saturday night, Houston took care of Cleveland at home. And the emergence of another bright young quarterback in C.J. Stroud. And, of course, on Sunday, or also on Saturday night, Kansas City with that game in frigid Kansas City against Miami, proving that maybe Kansas City, or Miami rather, not really the hyped-up team that everybody thought they would be. And then on Monday, a rare doubleheader for Wildcard Weekend, Buffalo. They set up a home game against Kansas City with a big win over Pittsburgh, holding on. And then, of course, in the nightcap, the Lions found out who their next opponent is going to be in the divisional round. And indeed, it's going to be a home game, and it's going to be Tampa Bay. So that's our divisional round setup. We're going to go through all of that here tonight. So, again, we welcome you here on the network. The Captain Lou Extravaganza is brought to you, as always, on the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube by Belly Up Sports. Use the promo code Captain Lou, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Go to SeatGeek.com if you're going to those divisional playoff games, possibly this weekend in Detroit or San Francisco or Baltimore or Buffalo for that matter. Check out SeatGeek.com and use the promo code Captain Lou for $20 off your first purchase. And coming up at the bottom of the hour here this afternoon, or tonight rather, we're going to be joined by Robin Adams of Wisconsin Sports Heroics and Gridiron Heroics. He's going to stop by and talk about that Green Bay Packer devastating win over the Dallas Cowboys and all the ramifications that could come from that, from the Dallas side. But, you know, what we're going to do with him tonight, we're going to give a majority, if not all, the credit to the Green Bay Packers. And all the talk over the last couple of days, it's kind of embarrassing. You know, on my way home Monday from Detroit, listening on the radio to Mike Greenberg on Get Up and, of course, on First Take and all that, especially on Get Up. The whole 2 hours was spent on Green Bay and Dallas and the meltdown of Dallas. And they did give credit to Jordan Love, but, you know, it's like there was not one mention, not even the score of the Lions game. And that's sad. Not even the score of Houston winning over Cleveland. Not even the score of Kansas City over Miami and the media darling that is Patrick Mahomes. It was all Dallas. And I would gather probably an hour and 15 minutes of it. So that we're not going to do. We'll talk a little bit about that, what's going to happen with Mike McCarthy and everything. But it's not going to be an all Dallas Green Bay show. We're going to talk about the Lions. Obviously, that's our team. And we'll talk about Houston. We'll talk about all the playoff games, and we'll set up divisional round action coming up this weekend, starting with the opening game, the Ravens and the Houston Texans. And then, of course, Green Bay and San Francisco on the nightcap on Saturday. And then next week, or on Sunday, rather, it's going to be the Lions opening up at home again, this time with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. And in the nightcap should be a good one in Buffalo. Kansas City opening up with their first road playoff game in the career of Patrick Mahomes as they go and take on the Bills Mafia and the Buffalo Bills on Sunday night. It's going to be just an absolutely spectacular weekend for football. Can't wait for it to get here starting on Saturday afternoon. So again, welcome everybody to the show. We talked about it with the wins. So Houston over Cleveland, Kansas City over Miami, and of course on Sunday it was Dallas getting thumped by Green Bay, Detroit with the big win, and then Buffalo and Tampa Bay the winners. But let's start out with the game near and dear to our heart, the Detroit Lions and the Los Angeles Rams, and indeed it was a great one. Blessed to be able to go down to that one. It's been 32 years in the making that the Lions would win a playoff game. It's been 30 years, obviously. It's been well documented, well presented throughout, coming into the game. But I got to tell you, it was amazing. I went down there to the game with my son, Matthew, and my brother came down from Green Bay, Brian, and his two of his kids, Bryce and Rachel. So we all went to the game on Sunday. We went out to lunch. We were thinking about maybe trying to figure out what to do with frigid cold temperatures. So anyways, it was about 5:15, 10 after 5. We thought, why don't we go to the stadium? The gates opened at 5:30. And I got to tell you, there was 15,000 people at least going into the stadium 2.5 hours before the game. The crowd was incredible, to say the least. Walking around, milling with all the fans, 95% Lions fans, obviously. It was cool because we got to go in there and walk around. They had the Packers game on the big screen if you wanted to go in near your seats. If you didn't want to walk around through the concourse, they had the game going on, on the concourse as well. And an hour and a half before the game started, the crowd started chanting Jared Goff, and it was just a sight to behold. I'm getting chills already thinking about it again. And the Lions didn't disappoint. It just was an electric atmosphere. The drummer of the Red Hot Chili Peppers came out with the Lions drum line, and it was one for the ages. And I just am so blessed to be able to get a chance to go down there for that. And it was well worth every penny. And the Lions ended up again with the big win, 24-23. It was crazy. It got out to a fast start. A lot of folks thought it was going to be a shootout, and it was. I'll tell you, the first 2 quarters. Lions get the ball right away. They go right down the field, methodical, just like what Green Bay did on their opening possession. The Lions strike first against Los Angeles, 7-0. Then Matthew Stafford, who did hear a smattering of boos. I mean, I'm trying not to fall into the trap of the Los Angeles Rams and their fans and their podcasters and their media just bashing Detroit fans for booing Stafford. But okay, fans are going to be fans, all right? And you can't tell me if Jared Goff wasn't playing in Los Angeles in that game, you're not going to have any Rams fans booing Jared Goff. I've heard for 3 years how, Jared Goff, all he gave us was 3 points in the Super Bowl, and he was worthless and this and that. Ram fans, I understand your frustration, and you're saying that Detroit has the most hypocritical fans, whatever. I'm just going to say this one time. If you Ram fans were so good and so loyal and so passionate, why did your team have to move to St. Louis? You never went to the games. And you still don't. I mean, your front, don't get the front running attitude. Don't get me going on that, because when the Lions go to Los Angeles, or any team, it seems like they get quite a few tickets there. They get a good showing. So I hear that, and it just drives me bat crap crazy. So anyways, I digress. So Matthew Stafford came out, brought him right down to the field. Detroit bent, didn't break, gave up the field goal. And then Detroit scored on their first 3 possessions. And it was crazy. I thought, here we go. We definitely have a track meet, and then the Rams get that touchdown, or they get it to 21-17. Detroit's moving down the field again. I'm thinking, all right, here we go. And then on third, Detroit lines up for 4th down and 5. We're thinking, wow, Are they really going to go for it? The Rams jump offside, and they call false start. And it's funny. I mean, okay, all I hear about from the national media, and again, the Rams pundits, and they're all whining and complaining about the holding call on Puka on that last drive for LA. It was holding. I mean, it's blatant. They show it 15 million times. But the only person in the national media to bring this up about that egregious false start call was Chris Collinsworth. That would have gave Detroit a first down. They would have probably kicked a field goal at least, if not a touchdown. The only thing that stopped the Lions in the first half were the referees. So if you're going to use that argument with me about Puka, you got to go both ways. You got to go with that bogus non-call or that false start call. So anyways, it was 21-17 at half, and it was incredible. Both teams made adjustments in the second half on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah, the Lions gave up a couple of field goals, but that bend but don't break mentality. Matthew Stafford had his way with Detroit, no doubt about it. He had almost 400 yards passing. God bless him. But when it counted down in the red zone, they couldn't capitalize. Detroit stiffened up inside the 20, stopped them for a couple of field goals. And then, of course, a lot of people don't talk about with the Lions, the unsung hero in this one, Michael Badgley, a 54-yard field goal. He was on the practice squad a few weeks ago. And a lot of people didn't think that he was, he had the leg. But I got to tell you, he kicked that in our end when we were sitting in the upper deck. And that would have been good from 64 yards easy. I mean, he drilled it. Call it adrenaline, whatever you want to call it. And who would have thought that would have been the difference in the game right there? And then the Lions hold on. So Los Angeles gets fourth down there when they're down 24-23 with 4 minutes to go, and they inexplicably punted. And I hear how Sean McVay is this genius, and he second-guessed himself. I give him credit. He made a mistake. He said he made a mistake. I'm surprised that they punted. So, the Lions do what the Lions do. The same old Lions would have probably ran 3 times up the gut and punted. But I got to tell you, I got to go back to the crowd. The crowd was insane. It was so loud from the word go. It was so cool because when the Lions had the ball, everybody was hushed. Everybody was, doing this, Goff's cooking. But boy, once LA got the ball, it was so loud, and boy, did it turn out to be prophetic in the second half, causing the Rams to call 2 timeouts in the third quarter. And boy, was that huge, wasn't it? Detroit gets the ball back, and, they throw the ball for 2 first downs, and it was all over but the shouting. The Rams had to use that timeout at the 2-minute warning, and it was just 3 kneel downs after that. And it was just a culmination. Again, I'm getting chills talking about it. It's absolutely amazing. The Lions definitely came through. They held on. And then the scene after the game, I'll bet you 50,000 of the fans stuck around for at least 10 minutes. And then, we sat in the stands just to soak it all in for like 20 minutes. I don't know if you saw my video on my Facebook page, Lewis Gamlin on Facebook. I will share it on Twitter. I tried to capture the last few moments of the game on a video, and people hugging that we didn't know each other. The guy to my right, a guy behind me shaking me, telling me it's been 65 years, and again, for those of you that are making fun of the Lions fans for, crying or whatever, tearing up or whatever, hey, I would like to see how you are in our shoes if your team took that long to win a playoff game. A lot of fans are spoiled, and it's not their fault. They've got teams that have done well over the years. We've all got stories about it. My dad passed away last year, lifelong Lions fan. My buddy Dana, his dad passed away a couple of years ago, longtime Lions fan, never got to see this. I mean, some of these guys, the last championship, 57, a good majority of us have never seen a playoff win. There's a lot of, like my son, who was, obviously wasn't born the last time the Lions won a playoff game. They showed the picture of that guy in the stands. He's been a season ticket holder for 66 years. I mean, those are awesome. And, it just brought our the Lion fan community together. So what a great win for the Lions. I mean, just being able to be there. It's like I told my wife, and God bless her for not objecting to me going. that is a memory that I will cherish the rest of my life. And I'm lucky to have my son sitting right next to me, both of us jumping up and down. It was so funny calling my wife at 11:30. She's half asleep, FaceTiming her, us jumping up and down, and then calling my brothers-in-law, and just having a big old time with it. God bless Chuck. God bless Steve for allowing me to call him then. And, just all of us overjoyed with tears in our eyes. Just, absolutely amazing. I could go on and on talking about it, but there you go. The Lions have advanced. Now they're going to take on Tampa Bay, who crushed Philadelphia. We're going to talk more about that, but we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about that Tampa Bay game. We'll get into the Green Bay-Dallas game with our guest, Robin Adams from the Wisconsin Heroics. He's coming up at the bottom of the hour. But right now, you are watching the Captain Lou Extravaganza, and it's live here on the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube, along with Belly Up Sports.
It's the biggest game of the year, and your team doesn't have a coach. They don't even have a game plan. You probably aren't feeling very good about their chances. Make sure you're prepared for one of the biggest financial decisions of your life, retirement. Do you have a coach? What about a plan? Set yourself up for success by calling 877-222-8849 and having Mindy and Nolan McIntosh and their team at McIntosh & Associates create your retirement playbook. They'll help you think through taxes, income, legacy planning, and much more. When you're done, you'll have a customized retirement game plan that you can feel confident in. Start planning today with Central Michigan's retirement coaches, Mindy and Nolan McIntosh at McIntosh & Associates. Call 877-222-8849. That's 877-222-8849. Investment advisory products and services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Captain Lou Extravaganza. We're live here on the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube. Also, Belly Up Sports, their YouTube channel as well. And we are brought to you, powered up by SeatGeek.com as well. Go to SeatGeek.com, use the promo code Captain Lou for $20 off your first purchase. If you're thinking about going to a divisional playoff game or any athletic event, the NHL, NBA, college basketball, if you're going to go to the MSU game tomorrow night, and or if you're going to go to the Michigan State hockey game Friday night, the only way you're going to get a ticket is to going through a site like SeatGeek. So make sure you check out SeatGeek.com and use the promo code Captain Lou, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Obviously, talking about Wildcard Weekend and setting up the divisional round tournament, or round of games, I guess you could say. And Detroit, as we mentioned, they'll take on Tampa Bay. The line is fluctuating between 6 and 6.5 right now. I think it did bump up to 6.5. It's going to be Sunday at 3:00. The Lions are a favorite. And again, I mean, we're not used to this as a Lion fan, being a favorite in a divisional round playoff game and just soaking it all in, taking nothing for granted. And I'll tell you why. Tampa, Baker Mayfield's playing like a man possessed. He's playing for a contract, and I think he probably played himself into one with that huge game he had against Philadelphia. But what's up with the Philadelphia Eagles? What an epic collapse. If you would have told me back in Thanksgiving or whatever, when they were 10-1, that Detroit would have a higher seed than Philadelphia, I'd have thought you're crazy. I figured they were the best team because San Francisco had that little rut where they lost 3 in a row, I believe. So they were a couple of games behind. Now, we all know teams go through ruts. Detroit did it. They lost 2 out of 3, whatever, during the year. Excuse me. Again, my voice, I beg your pardon. But what, with Philadelphia, talk about imploding. And, they get crushed by Tampa Bay 32-9. I mean, I thought Tampa had a shot to win. I thought it was a toss-up. I thought that cooler heads would prevail in Philadelphia. And I thought that, I thought they may have the edge in talent. Now, I understand that Jalen Hurts was playing with a broken finger, I believe a messed up hand, and they didn't have A.J. Brown, but they still had plenty of talent there. They had DeAndre Swift. They had Julio Jones, who did end up getting injured, but that wasn't the cause of it. The cause of that game, let's give credit where credit is due. Todd Bowles and his defense. They blitzed Philadelphia 59% of the time during the game. And I think every third down, they sent somebody. That's what the Lions are going to have to contend with on Sunday. If you get pressure on Goff, Detroit might be in trouble. So this is going to be an epic challenge for the Lions coming up on Sunday. If you think this is a gimme, you're crazy. I don't think so at all. Todd Bowles likes to dial it up. Now, these two teams played earlier in the year. You remember Detroit won 20-6, and they did have a handful of their guys out. I think Gibbs didn't play. Laporta didn't play, but they still won. But Tampa, this was a long time ago. You know, Baker Mayfield threw for over 300 yards in that game last night or Monday night against Philadelphia. So you got to give them all the credit in the world. If you think it's all due to Philadelphia imploding, you're crazy. Now, they did implode, and the million-dollar question is Nick Sirianni going to get fired in Philadelphia? I don't know. You know, I question his football intelligence in only one regard. Why in God's green earth would you put Matt Patricia as a coordinator for anything? Didn't Detroit teach you anything? He was a good defensive coordinator for the most part for Bill Belichick. But when he came to Detroit, I mean, he almost set Detroit back a decade. And it was a blessing in disguise for the Lions because they fired him and Bob Quinn and got Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, and the rest, as Jed says, is Jed's a millionaire. The rest is history. But he goes to Philadelphia, or if he goes back to New England, they put him in charge of their offense. And then he goes to Philadelphia. And ever since he became in charge of the defense, taking over for, I can't remember the old defensive coordinator's name, they hadn't been the same. So that's why at the last minute I thought, I can see, you know, I watched that game against New York before they played Tampa Bay. And it was just absolutely amazing how poorly that they played. And so Philadelphia's out. You know, I feel bad for Darius Slay. It's so funny that he played for Matt Patricia in Detroit, and he couldn't stand him. You know, Detroit didn't want to pay him, which to me, I still can't figure that one out. But again, that's Matt Patricia. Now, Nick Sirianni is going to get new coordinators if he stays on. I don't know what Jeffrey Lurie is going to do in Philadelphia, but that's Philadelphia. Tampa Bay now, that's the Detroit opponent that we got to keep an eye on as the Lions now will entertain the Pack or entertain the Buccaneers. 3:00 Sunday afternoon in downtown Detroit. Ford Field's going to be absolutely nuts again. The decimal level, I think, for this game last Sunday was 133, which they're saying is the highest ever at Ford Field. They compare it to the compare it to the noise of a jet engine taking off, and it's going to be electric in Detroit. They're moving the hockey game up to 7:00, so you're going to get a sports doubleheader. And here's the ironic thing: last weekend, the LA Kings came to town and took on Detroit. Detroit won that one, and then they played the Rams, won that. This weekend, the Tampa Bay Lightning are coming to town, playing Sunday night. The Lions at 3, Red Wings and the Lightning at 7. It is going to be an absolute madhouse in downtown Detroit. So if you're going down to Detroit for the game, if you're not staying there overnight or whatever, oh my gosh, I highly, highly recommend you get there early. Tailgate, whatever you want to do, go to the bar scene, whatever, just be safe and have a lot of fun. But that's going to be one heck of a game. Baker Mayfield, they're going to have to they're going to have to deal with him. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. They've got a passing attack, but I think Detroit can hang with that part. Of what really concerns me is the amount of pressure that Todd Bowles is going to bring on Jared Goff. You know, he's going to dial up the blitz. He lives and dies by it. This is going to be an interesting chess match between him and Detroit. You know, defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn, who many are tabbing as, I hear he's one of the leading candidates for the Tennessee Titans job. A lot of folks around the NFL, players and other coaches, they did a poll and they think Aaron Glenn is the top defensive coordinator in all of football. You know, from time to time, I think a lot of Lion fans would maybe kind of challenge that a little bit, but Detroit's bend but don't break defense. I like taking chances. They don't call Dan Campbell Dan Gambler, as Mark Ashley would say, but he is Dan Gamble, and that's the Aaron Glenn style as well. So, boy, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be great to watch that game on Sunday afternoon, 3:00, perfect time for it. Don't have to worry about staying up late. So it's going to be an excellent matchup on that. Elsewhere, let's real quick. We got a few minutes here before our guest shows up at 7:30. Over in the AFC, the first game, Houston and Cleveland. Wow. CJ Stroud coming out party. If you haven't watched him at all on the national level, he did quite well, to say the least. 32-9 for the Houston Texans over Cleveland. Their defense, big plays, 2 pick sixes in that one. Absolutely incredible for Houston. And, they took care of Flacco. The time machine finally ran out for Joe Flacco. You knew he wasn't going to come back because they've got Deshaun Watson. And inexplicably, Cleveland let go of their coordinators. Kevin Stefanski did that. Still kind of a head scratcher on that. But CJ Stroud, tell you, the stage wasn't too big for him. And I talked about this in the Belly Up Sports Wildcard preview show. CJ Stroud has that chip on his shoulder. He's won a playoff game. He didn't get to do that with Ohio State because of the amount of times that they lost to Michigan. And he knows what it's like to be on the other end of that. And I really honestly think that boosted him in this game against Cleveland. I really, truly believe that. He's got the poise of a veteran that's been there 5 or 6 years. What a great draft for the Houston Texans. We talk about the Detroit Lions draft. Houston did the same thing with, getting him and Will Anderson Jr. And now, next up for them, a Baltimore team that they have a quarterback with something to prove too, Lamar Jackson. He's going to be coming in. He's 1-3 in the playoffs. And I know that eats away at him big time. He wants something to do. He wants to change that. Baltimore, I believe right now, is an early 9.5-point favorite in this one. It's going to be in Baltimore. It's going to be the opening game of the playoff weekend, divisional round playoff on Saturday afternoon. Houston's got a big test with that Baltimore defense on the road. You can score on them, but boy, Houston has manhandled some great teams this year. They manhandled San Francisco in San Francisco. They tore apart Detroit, teams that are still in the playoffs. I mean, they have asserted themselves, in my opinion, as the top team in the playoffs in the NFL right now. And of course, it always begs the question: is there going to be rust? Is it going to be rest or rust? What are we going to go by on that one? Now, I know they're banged up a little bit, but when you got Lamar Jackson, it's going to make, he might make a couple of mistakes, but kind of remind, like Josh Allen. But you got another quarterback that's going to play with a chip on his shoulder. And I don't think he's going to make the same mistakes that Joe Flacco made against his Houston defense. And I'm not taking anything away from the Houston Texans defense. I mean, they put the heat on Cleveland. They showed them what a good defense, how a defense is supposed to perform in the playoffs, kind of like Green Bay. We're going to talk about that in the next half hour. Green Bay's defense is kind of what we thought they might be at the beginning of the year. And it's just such a turnaround for the Packers. We'll get into that. But Houston, they go to play Baltimore now. That's going to be a monster game coming up, opening round of the playoffs. And finally, the last game, we'll talk about first how they got there. Kansas City against Miami on a frigid night in Kansas City. And their defense stepped up. We talked about it on one of our extravagant few minutes. One of the guys that needed to step up was Isaiah Pacheco, and he did. And Rashid Rice. And he stepped up. And again, here's another instance of a quarterback that may have a chip on his shoulder, that being Patrick Mahomes. He's heard it now all week. He's heard it ever since they won. He's never played a playoff game on the road. We don't have to pound that point in, but you know that it's coming. And he gets to play Josh Allen in another epic showdown between two, right now, quarterbacks making a case to go to the Hall of Fame. I know Josh Allen's got a ways to go. Patrick Mahomes, to me, is already in. He's got 2 Super Bowl wins, but now this will just cement his legacy even further if he can go on the road, and get another playoff win. Him and Andy Reid going to Buffalo. But Kansas City, to me, they proved that Miami maybe a little bit fraudulent. The only team they beat with a winning record was the Dallas Cowboys. In Dallas, we saw what happened to them against Green Bay. They got their asses kicked. So Miami not winning against any team really of substance throughout the year. And then they show up in Kansas City and they get boat raced or iceberg raced or whatever you want to call it, icebreaker raced in that game in the frozen tundra of Arrowhead Stadium. So Miami, questions abound. Tua had a great year. Again, feasting on maybe a little lesser opponents, leading the league in passing, but that's going to be an interesting sight to see right there for the Kansas City, or for that matchup as Kansas City goes in. And now they're going to travel to Buffalo to take on the Bills. And Buffalo, with that win on Monday afternoon, holding off Pittsburgh again. Pittsburgh, you got to give them credit with what they've had. Their quarterback situation, obviously not the greatest. I mean, Mason Rudolph played about as good as he could, but he made some mistakes. Buffalo taking advantage of some of these errors. Again, showing why Buffalo they took advantage of it. And Josh Allen, again, showing why he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He's either good or he's really bad, but the good outweighs the bad. So now we've got Cleveland we've got Buffalo against Pittsburgh, or against Kansas City. Both of them, I think Buffalo is a 2.5-point favorite in this one. The other game, again, now we've got one more to talk about, and we'll see. I think I don't know if we've got Robin is with us here.
Hello.
Hey, how are you doing, Robin?
Good. I'm doing great. Just putting my son to bed.
Hey, it's all good, man. I remember those days. Well. Well, first of all, thanks for coming on to the show here tonight. Congratulations to you and your Packers. What a big win for Green Bay over Dallas.
It was huge. Like, I'm not going to say I expected to win, but it was nice to see them play to the level that we believe that they can.
Well, the thing about it too, Robin, is, at the start of the year, the Packers had pretty good expectations. But again, if there was ever a team that was kind of in an unknown phase when it comes to a quarterback situation, it was Jordan Love. And I got to be honest with you, when the Lions went up to Green Bay to play, I think it was week 4, and the way Detroit manhandled Green Bay, if you would have told me that Green Bay would have put 48 up on Dallas in the wild card round, I would have asked you, how much money did you really want to bet on that?
Yeah, it's been really a tale of 2 seasons almost. They started 2-5. That loss to Detroit in week 4 was their worst loss of the season, and then they lost to Minnesota at home too. In that, and it wasn't looking good. But before the season, Brian Gutekunst, Matt LaFleur, and the more level-headed Packers reporters and content creators were saying, and also Gilbert Brown. I do a shameless plug for my podcast, Go Dads Go, with Gilbert Brown, who played for the Packers in the 90s and won Super Bowl 31 with them. He said that there is no substitute for game experience, regular season game experience. Forget the preseason. Right. The regular season snaps are what counts. And Jordan Love and his young crew of pass catchers needed those in-game reps. And to say that they've improved over the season is not what surprises me. It's the how fast and how high they have improved. That is what is really surprising.
Well, I had a chance to watch, being here in Lower Michigan, your second round draft pick, Jaden Reed, when he played at Michigan State. And I told anybody that would listen, watch out for this guy. I honestly think, Robin, in a couple of years, he's going to be your number 1 receiver. He's got the speed, he's got the hands, and he's kind of easing into that. I really love that draft pick. And, and the defense too is what, at the beginning of the year, I thought that would be your strong point. And they kind of, they scuffled for a bit too. But obviously that's not the case right now.
Well, yeah, they've scuffled a lot. They've scuffled a lot over the last 3 years. Mm-hmm. But to go back to Jaden Reed, he has been super special for the Packers. I say anytime that you can mention a wide receiver's name in the same breath as Sterling Sharp is a good receiver. And Jaden Reed broke Sterling Sharp's record for receptions by a rookie wide receiver for the Packers.
Well, please don't bring that man's name up anymore. I still have nightmares of him doing jumping jacks at the Silverdome when they beat the Lions in their last playoff game 30 years ago. But just kidding. Just kidding. So, really, what do you think that, to me, it looked like the turnaround for the Packers was obviously after the bye, but on national TV, the way they turned it around against the Lions on Thanksgiving. Again, I didn't see that coming. I mean, I'll give credit to Jared Goff, obviously, but, Joe Barry is, I still is a head scratcher why he's a defensive coordinator in the NFL. But what they did against the Lions, turning up the heat and getting all that pressure on Goff, Detroit wasn't ready for that. And my hats are off to you guys, especially but getting back to my original thought, was that the turnaround, was it Thanksgiving or was it right after the bye where you could really see the change? And how did it happen?
It's a good question. And the other good question is, how is Joe Barry a defensive coordinator in the National Football League? We are still trying to figure that out in Green Bay. And this playoff run is a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, we are so excited that we are winning, but on the other hand, we are afraid that it might be good enough for him to be back next year.
That's kind of scary. Yeah.
Yeah. But to answer your question of how it started and when it started, coming out of the bye is a good starting point, but that Detroit game too is, the best way I can answer it is to say that the game against Dallas was the first time all season that the Packers put forth all of their preferred starters on offense except for David Bakhtiari.
Yeah.
And the reason for the turnaround, in addition to them just getting more game experience as the season went on, was guys getting healthy.
Yeah.
Like the game against Dallas, it was Aaron Jones's fourth straight 100-yard game. And it's the first time he's been healthy all year in that run.
Yeah.
Christian Watson played in Dallas. He didn't have a catch, but if you look at the film, a lot of the reasons Romeo Doubs was open so much was because Watson was carrying 2 or 3 defenders with him downfield.
That's a great point. Great point.
And then
go ahead.
Also the offensive line, we focus on Love, we focus on the pass catchers, but our left tackle is a 2022 7th-round pick in Rasheed Walker.
Mm-hmm.
He had a learning curve this year. Our right tackle is a 2022 4th-round pick in Zach Tom, who honestly should have been a Pro Bowler this year with how well he played. But it's just, they're so young on offense.
Boy, yeah, definitely. I want to get to the game Sunday, and I was talking about in the opening segment, I got a chance to go to the Lions game. So I was there, and we got there about 5:30, and the game started at 8:15. And there was probably 15,000 people in there already. And we're all watching the Packers and the Cowboys on the big screen. And, just the pressure that your defense put on Dak Prescott was incredible. But I also think, and I'm not taking anything away from your effort on defense, but the Lions, I think, kind of exploited a little bit of the Dan Quinn weakness on defense And boy, did you take advantage of it. And your defense took it up, another notch or 3. And my hat's off to your defense, the way you manhandled Dallas. It was incredible.
Yeah, the defense, as you have said, has been we went into the season thinking that they were going to be our strength, and they have been far from it. But that being said, with familiarity brings success. And you look at their last 3 wins in particular against the Vikings and then the Bears and Dallas. And those are all teams that the Packers have played rather frequently over the past few years.
Yeah.
A lot of people forget we beat Dallas last year, and last year's team wasn't nearly as good as this year's team. Even though they were just 1 win off, it wasn't nearly as good.
Yeah.
And it's the mystery of Joe Barry. It really is. And
Oh my God, don't make me laugh. It hurts.
But with the defense has had its own interesting thing all season, and we can call a turning point for the defense too. And the turning point was the Carolina game and the fallout from that. A lot of people may remember that Jair Alexander got himself suspended by the team for that. And, as unfortunate as it was, it really, I think, forced everyone in that locker room to face the hard truth that their communication sucked.
Yeah.
And, he was suspended for the Vikings game, but the Packers held the Vikings out of the end zone, save for a 7-yard touchdown drive from when Samori Toure fumbled a punt.
Yeah.
And then in Chicago, or at Lambeau against Chicago, week 18, they didn't allow them in the end zone at all. And then you get to Dallas, and we basically almost shut them out in the first half. And so what has changed for the defense has been the communication, I think, is a lot better than it was. It's unfortunate that it took Jair Alexander doing something reckless to get them to face that in a proactive way. But it does give us some hope going forward. Not that we expect Joe Barry to put up much of a fight against Kyle Shanahan, but
we'll talk about that in a minute. So I got to ask you, he's an old Green Bay Packer coach. Do you think Mike McCarthy's coached his last game in Dallas?
Oh, that's a tough one. Like, Mike McCarthy is a very good coach. I'll just say that. He's a very good coach, and he's got a couple weaknesses. His clock management is terrible.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Always has been. I don't understand why, one of our former quarterbacks, bench warmers, practice-wise, Kurt Benkert, you may be familiar with his stuff. He suggests that all NFL coaches get a Madden player on their coaching staff to help them with clock management. And I don't know if he's semi-joking, but I think Mike McCarthy should explore that avenue because it's terrible. So the problem with Mike McCarthy is that aside from the Packers Super Bowl run in 2010, 2011, he has not done well in the playoffs.
No.
At all. Like, he's 1-3 in the playoffs with the Cowboys. And their losses are coming at home. So I don't know. It's going to be tough because it sounds like Quinn is going to be getting some looks at head coaching jobs, and
I
don't know.
We'll see. Yeah,
I try not to predict what Jerry Jones is going to do.
Well, you can't. That's exactly right. You can't. So next up, Saturday night, Fox 8:15, 7:15 your time. You get San Francisco. They're a 9-point favorite. I think that's a lot of points. I think that's too many. Now, my first question about that is, will the rest turn into rust for the 49ers? I mean, that's a long time off for these guys. Some of the starters haven't played in a couple of weeks.
The last few, I mean, as a Packers fan, I can't tell you how many times the rust has gotten us.
Yeah.
Like, we just talked about Mike McCarthy, like every time.
Yeah. But can your defense contain Purdy? I mean, what is it going to take for them to contain him?
Well, the big thing for the defense, I think, is going to be to not allow turnover-worthy plays to pass them by. Brock Purdy is a very good quarterback, but when you look at his turnover-worthy throws, it's a very high number. He's been very fortunate to have some turnover-worthy throws as dropped interceptions or plays not be made. And if the Packers are going to win, I think they're going to need to get a couple of those turnover-worthy throws.
Yeah. Finally, for the Packers on the offensive side of the ball, everybody is hyped San Francisco's defense all year. I guess when you've got the best record in the conference, there's a reason for that. But I think Green Bay they can score on San Francisco. And, Robin, I don't think the moment is too big for Jordan Love. But what in your mind will they have to do to keep that high-powered offense going against that San Francisco defense?
There is no moment too big for Jordan Love. I mean, all year he is the same guy in press conferences now as he was in week 1. He's just so humble and so not about himself. He gets embarrassed if you ask him about himself. He tries to turn it around on the team.
Well, that's a little different, eh?
Yeah, it is. It's wonderful. It's such a nice breath of fresh air. But I think that is what it's going to be all about on offense. The Packers don't have a number 1 wide receiver.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they have 5 number 1 wide receivers. Because these guys genuinely do not care about their own stats. And Jordan Love isn't worried about forcing the ball to a designated number 1 wide receiver. He is going to take what the 49ers give him. And if the offensive line gives him time, he will find the open guy. And that could be Jaden Reed. It could be Christian Watson. It could be Romeo Doubs. It could be practice squad up until Carolina, Bo Melton, who put up 100 on Minnesota. So that's what the key. The other key is Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones has to get his carries. It's some absurd record. The Packers are like 12-1 in his career when he gets 20 carries.
Okay.
Well, but of course, that him getting the carries is dependent on the Packers hanging with the 49ers and putting points on the board. So feed Aaron Jones early and often.
All right, we got about 60 seconds left for you. I don't know if you want to make a prediction on the game or not, but if you're waiting until Sunday or Saturday, I get it. But Wednesday night, what is your Wednesday night feel for the game?
My
score-wise?
Wednesday night feel for the game is the Packers are going to pull off the upset 28-27.
Beauty. I hope so. Because, it's so funny is as a Lion fan, we've had a big rivalry with the Packer fans, but it's just, I feel it different this year. It's great to see the NFC North have 2 teams left in the final 8, and let's hope that we can have 2 teams in the final 4. Robin, I appreciate you taking time out tonight to be with us. Enjoy your game Saturday night. We'll be cheering for
Thank
you.
you.
And again, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Robin Adams from the Wisconsin Heroics and the Gridiron Heroics joining us here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. So, yeah, it's going to be a fun game for the Packers and the 49ers. 9 points is a lot of points. And right now, I'd lean towards Green Bay covering. I don't know if they're going to win, but I just got a feeling that they're going to hang right there. And as Robin mentioned, they're healthy. They've got their full allotment on the offense. And we talk about it. Let's bring that 1 point back up. Will the rest turn into rust? He brought up a good point earlier, too. Think back to when they played the 49ers when Aaron Rodgers rested, or the year before that. And it bit Green Bay right in the ass. Now the tables are turned. Obviously, if Green Bay could get the pressure on Purdy like they did Dak, I think that could be a big key. They got a lot of weapons, though. San Francisco's got McCaffrey, Samuel, you name it, Kittle. I think the big key is going to be Purdy. And I think, he also brought up a good point about Jordan Love. He is so even keeled. And the moment so far hasn't been too big for him, but it's the divisional playoffs. And he showed last week that he was poised. So, all right, that's going to do it here tonight. We're going to close a little bit early. We've got another program coming up on the YouTube channel at Belly Up Sports. We're going to close it here. A reminder that check out our extravagant few minutes, Saturday and Sunday versions. We're going to give our predictions for all 4 of the games, but we'll have an extravagant few minutes here coming up tomorrow and Friday at 5 o'clock Eastern time. Who knows what we'll talk about on that, but it will be extravagant. All right, I want to thank Robin Adams for taking time out to be with us from the Wisconsin Heroics, talking about the Green Bay-Dallas game and the implosion that was the Dallas Cowboys. But again, give all the credit to the Green Bay Packers. Joe Barry, who would have thought that defense putting the hurt on Dallas like they did? All we know as Lion fans, Joe Barry, the mastermind behind our 0-16 team on defense back 15 years ago. Seems like a lifetime ago, though, doesn't it? So anyways, that's going to do it. We hope you enjoyed the show tonight. Join us next week. We've got 2 big shows, the ACHA Power Play Tuesday at 7 o'clock, and then another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza next Wednesday at 7 o'clock. We'll get you set up for the AFC and NFC championship games and who knows what else. So thanks for taking time out to be with us. Captain Lou saying, keep your heads up, keep your sticks down, keep your feet moving, and as always, keep your minds open. Thanks for joining us on the Captain Lou Sports Network, powered up by SeatGeek and Belly Up Sports for another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza. So long.